It's a pleasure to be with all of you at this incredibly beautiful time in New Mexico and this joyous time to give thanks. I'll be reading today a book called The Polar Express that has been written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg. It's a very, very sweet tale of perhaps not only believing, but being with other people and having your dreams come true. And I'm going to start. And we start with a picture of a young boy looking out the window. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound. A sound a friend had told me I would never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and I saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest. He looked up at my window, so I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard," the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as rich and thick as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to see. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high, it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. Then the mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole! It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train grew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped, and the conductor led us inside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harness. It was a magical sound like nothing I had ever heard before. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointed to me and said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he said, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug, and he told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed me the bell and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us and then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back in the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket. The only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and we started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and I waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. What? I yelled. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. The Polar Express let out a large blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, little Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yeah," said my father, "it is broken." When I had shaken the bell, my parents had not heard sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, But as the years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found that one Christmas she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I have grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. The end, and warmest happy holidays to all of you. I have another book to read, which is termed Snow Friends, and it is by Margery Cuyler. It's a joyful book about friends that romp in the snow, and it begins with pictures of a lovely house surrounded by snow. Snow, snow, and more snow. There is a dog named Oscar, and Oscar couldn't wait to go outside, but no one was awake, not even his boy, Matt. Oscar waited and waited until he heard Matt stirring. Oscar grabbed his leash and he ran to his boy's room. "Walk," he barked. "Not now," said his boy. "Now," he barked. Matt sighed, and he got up and then he shuffled to the back door. "Go play in the yard," he said. "I'll take you for a walk later." "Snow," barked Oscar. "What next?" Oscar raced down the street. He chased a bunny to an icy pond. Just then, a ball came sailing through the air. "Fetch!" a little girl cried. "Mine," Oscar called out. "Mine," called out another dog. All of a sudden, the boy Matt noticed at his home, "Where's Oscar? He's run away." He quickly put on his boots, his hat, his scarf, his coat, and began to call through the snow, "Where's Oscar? Oscar! Let's go find him." Meanwhile, back in the woods, the two dogs dashed around trees, up and down hills, and across snowy fields. "Let's build a snow dog," barked Oscar. "Let's ice skate," yelped Daisy, the other dog. "Let's build an igloo," barked Oscar. And then suddenly, Oscar and Daisy smelled something very familiar. "Oscar! Daisy! That's my girl," yelped Daisy. "That's my boy," barked Oscar. The two dogs ran through the snow, up the hill, and jumped on their owners. "Oscar!" yelled Matt. "Daisy!" yelled the girl. Kaboom! They all fell over and rolled and rolled and rolled downhill until they landed in a heap. Oscar licked Matt's face. "My boy," he barked. Daisy licked her girl's face. "My girl," she yelped. Then off they ran. Snow Friends. The end.